For the first minute, we dive straight into a question that surprises most people. Why one particular Cold War shelter design still outperforms many of the expensive technology-heavy systems built today. At the height of nuclear tension, engineers weren't armed with luxury budgets, computer simulations, or decades of modern sensor data. They worked under pressure, under secrecy, and with the expectation that their structures might be called upon once without warning and then might have to sustain life for months with zero outside assistance. These shelters had to survive without fuel, without electronics, and without regular maintenance. They couldn't afford to fail quietly because of moisture, structural fatigue, or contaminated air. Out of that intense environment came a design forgotten by most people today, yet still respected by military engineers and historians as one of the smartest underground layouts ever created. The Earth multi-chamber fallout shelter with passive pressure equalization. This was no flimsy backyard shelter torn from a mid-century survival pamphlet. This was a layout used for command posts, communication hubs, and protected storage facilities across the United States, Europe, and the Soviet bloc. Its strength came from its intentional simplicity. Every chamber supported the next. Each layer of earth acted as both shield and stabilizer, and the sequence of interior spaces was carefully arranged to handle radiation, contamination, airflow, temperature swings, and structural load, all without relying on gadgets. While many modern designs depend heavily on pumps, fans, sensors, and reinforced concrete alone, Cold War engineers leaned into the natural world. They used soil mass, geometry, airflow paths, and distance to do most of the work for them. And because these principles don't degrade, don't depend on electricity, and don't care whether the structure was built in 1962 or 2025, this old blueprint still performs incredibly well. A major part of its success comes from earth berming. Cold War engineers understood that soil is more than just dirt heat's radiation shielding. Thermal insulation, structural buttressing, and even acoustic dampening. Many of the best shelters weren't fully underground. They were partially buried. This allowed them to breathe while still enjoying the advantages of dense earth mass. The result was reduced internal temperature swings, less condensation, and fewer stress fractures, the kinds of problems that plague many modern concrete bunkers. Even today, the practical lesson is simple. Whether you're building a route cellar, storm shelter, off-grid food vault, or long-term storage room, mounding earth around the structure dramatically improves stability and lifespan. In Cold War tests, earth-bermed shelters consistently showed much lower humidity levels, even in wet climates, compared to. But one of the most brilliant features of these shelters was the multi-chamber layout. Instead of one big room, engineers divided the shelter into a sequence of connected spaces. The first chamber acted as an entry vestibule, a pressure equalizer, and a contamination buffer. The second chamber held equipment or storage. The innermost room was the living or operational space. This simple arrangement controlled airflow and radiation exposure through nothing more than distance and wall mass. Each chamber absorbed temperature shifts and pressure changes one at a time, slowing down air movement and trapping contaminants long before they could reach the people at the core of the structure. Many abandoned Cold War shelters remain surprisingly dry and clean even after decades, because the layout itself prevented the violent air currents and condensation that so often destroy modern one-room shelters. And then there was the passive pressure equalization system, the quiet genius that kept these shelters livable. Most underground rooms fail not from dramatic collapse, but from tiny imbalances that build over time. In a single enclosed room, pressure gradients shift as people breathe, temperatures change, and outside weather fluctuates. Moisture forms, mold grows, air goes stale. But with multiple chambers, air settles gradually instead of fighting itself. Fresh air moves predictably from the entry chamber through to the deepest room. Even with minimal ventilation, the entire shelter becomes a slow-moving, breathing organism, staying stable almost entirely on its own. If you had vents so that air enters from the first chamber and exits from the last through a simple stack vent or winddrawn exhaust, you don't need fans. You don't need power. And this is exactly why so many forgotten Cold War bunkers across Europe still smell neutral and dry when opened after half a century of abandonment. The last reason this design still outperforms many modern shelters is simple. It doesn't depend on fragile technology. Today's bunker marketing focuses on gadgets, HEPA units, battery banks, reinforced electronic doors, and digital air pumps. But Cold War engineers assumed those things might fail at the worst possible moment. So they built shelters that relied on physics, geometry, and material durability, things that don't care if the power is out. If a circuit board fries, or if the world outside has changed, their designs worked everywhere, in almost any climate, under enormous stress. And they still do. For anyone who studies the era, for anyone fascinated by practical historical engineering, or for anyone planning their own long-term resilience project, the Cold War multi-chamber, earth-bermed shelter stands out as one of the most effective systems ever created. It costs less, lasts longer, and performs better than many modern alternatives. And it proves a point that's easy to forget. Sometimes the smartest engineering isn't the most expensive. The design that understands the natural world and works with it, not against it. If you enjoyed this deeper look into Cold War engineering and want to explore more long-forgotten but brilliantly effective designs, make sure to subscribe to In the Beginning and share this with anyone who appreciates real historical knowledge. Preserved the right way.